Mojabeng Mosebo is here with us now. It is so great to have you with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, of course. All right, well, let's go back to 2009. We said it in the setup piece that your family was struggling financially and you needed to find a job. And that is kind of what led you to being human trafficked. Can you just kind of explain what happened in 2009?
So in 2009, I was unemployed. My husband was unemployed. And we had been for a little over 5 years. So we were struggling. We were going through so much poverty that I don't think people can even imagine. We would go days without food. And when we do get food, sometimes we just have to spare for the children. And one morning I get a call from my cousin, somebody that I trust, somebody that I grew up with. She was telling me that there was a job offer for a sales rep. And of course I was really excited because this was an answer to prayer. So I went to South Africa. When I got to South Africa, I was interviewed and I was very happy that I was actually chosen for the job. And immediately they told me I was gonna travel because I had to get clothes for one of their shops. So I went, I was booked at a hotel, not very far from OR Tambo, which is in South Africa. And when I got there, I got into the room and the guys left. After they left, I tried to open the door and it was locked.
Oh my goodness.
So I started to think, no, something is not right here. But I called my cousin. She was like, no, you'll be fine, you'll be okay, there's nothing wrong there. They had actually taken my phone and I told her about the phone. Like, no, they're probably just trying to help you, you know, they are giving you their phone, they're protecting you, like they said. And I was like, why are they protecting me? But she seemed to be okay with everything that was happening. I tried to call my husband, and when I called him, he told me that our 2 baby girls had been expelled from school because we couldn't afford to pay for their fees. And so I didn't tell him what was happening. You know, I just thought, okay, let's see what will happen.
Yeah. So what happened?
So what happened is I got on the plane, I went to Japan, and when I got to the Japan airport, they searched my luggage and they found the drugs and I was arrested.
Mojabeng, when did you realize what was happening? Was it after you talked to your cousin? Was it after that? When did you realize you were being trafficked as a drug mule?
That was after I spoke with my cousin, because then there was a lady and a gentleman that came later in the night, and they actually told me that I was now working for them, not for the other guys who had interviewed me. So I knew that, yeah, I was going to be used as a drug mule then.
Wow. Well, you got on the plane, you got to Japan, your bags were searched. What happened after that?
Just after they found the drugs, about 10, 11, 12, I really can't remember the number, police officers came in. And, you know, I was interviewed. They asked me a lot of questions. And because I couldn't speak the language, they found a translator for me. And she couldn't even speak correct English, but we could understand each other. And so they took me to after about 3 or 4 hours, they took me to the police station where I was interrogated. That's what I call it, every day from 8 to 8 for 28 days.
Oh my gosh.
I guess they were trying to see if my story would change, and they were also trying to do their own investigations. And then after that, I was taken to a detention home. At the detention house, I was there for 4 months before I could actually go to court. And at first, initially, I was sentenced to 12 years. And then I appealed through the advice of the lawyer, the state lawyer that was appointed for me. And it went down to 4 years and then to 3 years. I was there for 8 months.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so you were in a Japanese prison for 3 years. What was that like? I mean, what was going through your mind? What was it like for your husband and your daughters? Talk about that.
It was a very difficult time.
Of course.
Being in a foreign country, I didn't, speak the language. And Japanese prisons are more like an army training, well, at least if I compare with my country, from where I come from, which is Lesotho. And it was really difficult. We couldn't look at each other. We had to live by commands, stand when you're told to stand, sit when you're told to sit, speak when you're told to speak, go to the bathroom when you're told to. And even with, I stayed in a single room, and the bathroom was right there where the officers could see as they passed. There was just a wall that was the size, and they could see from there upwards. So there was no privacy.
Wow.
And the most difficult thing was I couldn't call my family, I couldn't call my husband, nor my children. We could only communicate through letters.
Wow.
And the letters took really a long time, to come to me and to get to them. But it was in a messed up way, the best time of my life, because
Wow.
I got to know, who God is and who I am in Him.
Yes.
And somehow, I think I found myself, because when I was first arrested, I felt like I was going to die. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to think about my children, my husband, everything that was going on. But in those 3 years, I learned that my life is in the hands of the Lord, and His love, His acceptance, they mean much more than everything else. And I think that's where I got the meaning of life and the purpose that maybe I came for in this world.
Wow, I see the tears in your eyes, and I know you've experienced the love of God even during suffering. Well, you left Japan after 3 years, and you were reunited with your family. How was that?
It was amazing. I got to Johannesburg at OR Tambo, and I was supposed to call my husband. But because I was so much used to living by commands, I didn't know how to do that. So I couldn't call him. I went to Maseru. When I got to Maseru, there was nobody at the airport to pick me up. I got on a shuttle and then went to my place. When I got to the door, I knocked and there was no response. I kept knocking until he came to the door, and when he opened, there I was standing, and he just looked at me and said, "Jesus, Jesus." And then we start crying. The children came and they made noise. I'm like, "Don't make noise. Let's just go inside." So we got inside the room and we talked, we laughed, we hugged. It was such an amazing time.
Of course, of course. Well, moving forward, now you are working for the Beautiful Dreams Society, and you are working with human trafficking victims and trying to prevent human trafficking from even happening. Talk about your work with them. How did you even become a part of the Beautiful Dreams Society?
So I went back home in 2012, and from 2012, when I got back home, I made a decision that I would just go on TV, on newspapers, just get word out there, because I hadn't had anybody talk about human trafficking. So I thought I would tell people, I will share my story so that people are aware. And then I kept getting calls that you should connect with Beautiful Dream Society, and I didn't know Beautiful Dream Society. So I think until 2017, people have been trying to connect me with them, but
really?
It just didn't work for some reason. And then sometime in 2017, I get a call, and it was a lady that was working there, and she was like, "Can we meet?" And I went, we met, and then I started volunteering in 2017 at Beautiful Dream Society. In 2018, they hired me as an awareness coordinator.
Wow. And
then in 2020, I was hired I was promoted to be the director of the organization. So basically it's just, something that God has placed in my heart to go out there and help the women and girls that have been trafficked. And for me, it's not just about the numbers. It's not about the tragedy, it's very personal because I can relate and I can identify with what they are going through.
Of course, of course. Well, I see your story as almost like a modern day Joseph. Here you are. What did he say? He said, you might have meant this for evil, but God meant it for good and for the saving of many lives. And I believe that's exactly what he's doing through you.